Hey everyone, welcome back to the show. I hope you're all doing well and having a great start to your week wherever you are in the world. Thank you for tuning in. We have an incredible guest today, and I promise you this isn't a conversation you want to miss. Joining us is Mr. Nick Jost, a former forward air controller for the United States Special Operations Command. In this highly specialized and demanding role, Nick was responsible for coordinating air support for elite special forces, ensuring precision airstrikes in some of the most intense combat environments. His job required split-second decision-making, technical expertise, and the ability to operate under extreme pressure, often in life or death situations. Throughout his career, Nick worked along some of the most highly trained military units in the world, serving as the critical link between the ground and air forces. Nick has worked with the British SAS, the Navy SEALs, and many other elite SOF units. His first-hand experiences offered a rare and invaluable perspective on the complexities of modern warfare, the strategic coordination required in the field, and the immense responsibility that comes with directing air power from the ground. Today, we are going to explore his journey, his experiences, and the lessons he's carried with him beyond the battlefield. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the next 1 hour with us. Thank you.
Yeah, so I'll just begin with a short introduction about you. So is it okay if I call you Nick?
Sure.
Sure. So yeah, welcome to the podcast, Nick. It's an honor to have you here today. And so today I'm going to be having a conversation with Nick. So Nick is a true aviation and international affairs powerhouse. He served with distinction in the USS SOCOM, honing his skills in covert operations and pushing his physical and mental limits. Nick is also a highly skilled fighter pilot, having soared through the skies in the legendary F 16. He received a degree in aeronautical science from the prestigious Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University. Furthermore, Nick has a huge amount of expertise in international relations with a degree in political science from the renowned Diplomatic Academy of Vienna. And thank you so much, Nick, for coming on this podcast. I've been very excited to talk to you. And yeah, thank you so much for accepting my invitation. So, my first question just for you is like, what motivated you to pursue a career in the aviation or aerospace industry?
Well, first of all, hello, Aman. Thank you for inviting me to your podcast. What brought me to pursue my dream of flying aircraft? Well, ever since I can remember, ever since I was a little boy, I could think of only one thing I wanted to do when I was a grown up, and I would fly airplanes. I wasn't so sure in the beginning what kind of surrounding that would be, if may it be civilian or military or just recreational. But over the years, I grew an interest, as any kid interested in aviation. I, built model airplanes, read magazines, and books about airplanes, aviation, biographies. And the older I got, the more I got focused also school-wise and studying-wise to, focus on that career path. And the rest is history, basically.
Mhm. And like just out of curiosity, so we were briefly talking about this as I was chatting with you on LinkedIn, and you can talk about it if you're comfortable, but or not. But you said you were like a forward air controller for various sorts of um, operations conducted by special forces units around the world. So um, was your job basically like to transport soldiers from like SAS or the SEALs from one location to another, or like just what does a forward air controller do, basically?
Well, a forward air controller is usually a fully qualified pilot aviator that gets attached to a special forces unit and is kind of like the link in between aviation world, if you will, and the ground world. I mean, we all speak the same language. Everything is standardized. It's a native vocabulary, if you will, but everybody has his own terminologies and calls things a little different. And in the heat of battle, it makes sense to have somebody there as an interpreter to make sure that the word gets or the mission gets done. Basically, the word gets out the way it's supposed to, and everybody uh, plays according to the same sheet of music. And since you're an aviator, a forward air controller knows how everything looks from the airplane, how the pilots operate on the battlefield, knows the conditions. So if, let's say, the Special Forces unit needs to have fire support, um, the aviator knows exactly, or the forward air controller knows exactly what the capabilities of each aircraft are, of each type of ammunition, coordinates everything angles wise, knows the topography from the situation. So it's basically the link in between those two roles.
Okay.
Yeah.
So in informally, could I say that you were a special forces pilot, basically? Or-
Well, no, I was a fighter pilot, but I got deployed with a special forces team, or actually various teams. It was just in my function as a forward air controller, and that was under the command of the Special Forces Command. Yeah,
Okay.
so that's the authority, basically.
Okay.
Mm.
So, and you have like flown many different aircraft. Like I was just going through your LinkedIn profile, and you've flown a lot. So, like, which one was your favorite, and like what sort of differences did you encounter between each one?
Yeah. Well, that's a difficult question to ask a pilot because normally everybody says the aircraft I fly is the best, and that usually it also varies. So uh, it always the airplane that you fly at the moment is the best aircraft. If you talk to any aviator, but looking back to all the aircraft that I was lucky to fly, I would say I would have two favorites, and it's still kind of difficult to choose between them because they're different yet pretty similar. I don't know if you can see them hanging on the little pictures behind me, but one of them is the F-16 and the other one is the F-18 Hornet. Um, I started out in the Navy as a Naval Reserve pilot and later switched to the Air Force Reserve. And what's challenging about flying in the Navy is that you operate from carriers, and the whole concept of carrier aviation is so unique. You won't find anything close. The thrill that you have, the anxiety, the fear, if you will, but also the sense of accomplishment that you get after landing on a pitching moving runway, if you will, is just tremendous. So I would say purely from the performance, I would say the F-16 was the best airplane to fly because it flies 9 Gs, accelerates vertically to supersonic speeds, and can carry a lot of different weapons, which the F-18 also does, or FA-18 as it's officially called. Um, but the difference is you just operate from a ship, and the Hornet is uh, a real marvel to fly at slow air speeds. So most fighter jets like to fly fast. That's what they can do best. But the Hornet is flying exceptionally well at low speeds. So when it comes to just pure air-to-air combat maneuvering, usually the fight ends up uh, well, it's not supposed to be like that, but if the fight uh, takes a little longer, so to speak, it ends up in the slow speed area. And that's where you have to have exceptional maneuverability, and that's where the Hornet excels. Uh, it's basically managing your power and your dynamics in order not to get there, basically. But if
Mhm.
you do, you want to have an airplane that works well in a slow speed scenario as well, which the Hornet does. So
Yeah,
those are my two absolute favorites, I would say.
yeah, yeah, for sure. So, just to, like about the F-16, um, And like in general, so you've flown the FA-18, you've flown the F-16. Like what was just the process of like learning to fly, like a fighter jet? Like for
Mhm.
most civil, people like me who are in civil aviation, will go from the Cessna 172, and then from the Cessna 172, we'll instruct for a bit, and then gradually we'll
Mhm.
like jump into bigger and bigger jets. But how does that work for like a fighter pilot? How do you guys
Yeah.
train, and when do you jump into the F-16?
Well, it's different and unique from every force around the globe, but at least for the Western Hemisphere or NATO standard, I would say in most countries in Europe, it's like you start the selection process in the military, and once you're like found fit to fly, you start at a well, pretty much the same that you have mentioned, a single engine prop airplane. In some countries, you start in a Cessna, some others you start in a little more powerful variant, um, like the T6, for example, nowadays in the US. Um, and then after the first year or so, you transfer to a jet trainer, and that's the difference in the military. So in the Navy, I flew the T-45. The Air Force uses T-38s. Some other countries use whatever training aircraft they have. Like in the UK, they use the Hawk as well as the jet trainer. And once you're done with your jet syllabus as well, you then get to, in some cases, choose your aircraft. It's not sure though that you actually get the aircraft on your wish list, basically. So it's just and I think that's another similarity in every military around the globe. It depends on, for one, your personal skills, how well you did during flight school, and on the other hand, on the demand of the military. So if they're in need of helicopter pilots, but you're qualified to fly jets, it might happen that you get a helicopter slot. So that can happen as well. And sometimes the disappointment is big, but after a couple of years, you usually get a chance to transfer. If as long as you do well in your career and show interest, there's usually always a chance further on to switch aircraft too. But that's the main difference. So, like in the civilian flight school, you start flying something, also budget-wise cheaper, like a single engine prop, and then you move on, get your multi-engine rating, and you get your instrument rating, and at the end you get your transport pilot license. But in the military, it's theoretically the same. The aircraft just differ usually power-wise, and the training pipeline is also much more thorough. So in the civilian flight school, basically it's up to you. I mean, it depends. You also have two different systems. You have the ab initio flight training where you just walk in as a pedestrian and you walk out as an airline pilot. And some airlines actually have this type of flight school as well, or you just do it modular. Um, for example, if you're still studying something next to it, or if you're working full time, and then you just, study theory at home. You go take your computer tests and you go to flight school, take your flight lessons, and then you check rides basically. And you just do it, block after block. You start with your private, then get your instrument rating, get a commercial, and so on and so forth. So in the military, you don't have that privilege of time. It's basically sucking all the information from a fire hose. It's a lot of pressure on the pilots. It's also like a weeding out and washing out program. So if you're doing good academically, and if learning fast, and a huge amount of information is not a problem for you, then you should probably be safe taking the course. But I've seen a lot of colleagues who were just overwhelmed with the sheer information that you have to learn. I mean, you learn a lot in university, but then you have the constant pressure of performing well during all your academic tests, but also on the flight line in the aircraft, actually. So the combination makes it, I would say, more challenging than in the civilian world.
Mhm. Okay. Yeah, like so we're just about to like we wrapped up CPL theory just like a couple weeks ago, and then yeah, the way our flight school is doing it is we're doing PPL theory, then CPL theory, then we'll do instrument rating theory. So
Mhm.
and then once we're done with instrument rating theory, then we're done with ground school, and then we'll move on to flying. Hopefully in
Okay.
about a couple weeks. So
Okay, that's interesting. So you start out with without any actual flight training in the beginning, right? You just do the theory courses first, and then you actually
yeah,
start flying. Okay.
yeah,
No, I haven't heard of that before. Usually,
yeah,
also in the US, it's more like you start with your private, but of course, first you do theory classroom sessions, but on the first day in the flight school, you usually get to fly your first flight. So it's done in parallel so that you can also better process and transfer the theoretical knowledge and use it practically. But it's just a different approach. Don't want to say that either way is better. It's just the way I was used to it. Just
yeah.
start flying the airplane from day one, basically.
Hmm. Yeah. And um, so you've flown the F-16, and it's a truly remarkable machine, and it's known for its like agility and performance. Um, like based on like all of your experiences, like what sort of unique capabilities like really surprised you about the F-16, and like if at all, if it I'm not sure how much of the details or the technicalities of the F-16 are classified, but could you maybe share us like any situation where um, like the uh, the technical like what something about the F-16 which kind of like surprised you in like an actual mission or something?
Mm. That's a good question. Well, after the B course, as it's called, the basic course, there's actually no surprises anymore, or at least not expected. So you should know the airplane pretty well inside out. But what always fascinated me was just how fast the airplane accelerated and how fast it actually built up G's, the G load. And in the beginning, and that's probably also one of the biggest differences from a civilian flight school or civilian flight training and the military flight training. You actually start building a G tolerance from day one. So the first day you go out and you go out in a some countries have a Cessna whatever you pull whatever you can 2-3 G's in a turn, do like max turns, 60-degree turns, whatever, and do a little bit of acrobatics. So in the military, you start doing acro from day one. You fly rolls and loops and that kind of stuff, and you start building up a G tolerance. So by the end of all your basic courses, you're quite familiar to the high G arena. Plus, you have a helmet, oxygen system, a G suit. You're used to the G's training maneuver. You've done it hundreds, if not thousands, of times before in all your flights. And then you fly a high performance fighter like the F-16, and then you have to be really careful. A lot of lives have been lost previously. Um, in the last couple of years, it changed a little because the F-16 now offers auto GCAS, which is automatic ground collision avoidance system. But the thing that got most people was that the airplane could build up G forces so fast, and if you don't watch your G meter on one hand and do the proper anti-G training techniques, you end up in trouble really fast, especially in IMC, bad weather at night, low to the ground. You don't feel it. You actually lose the sensation of where it's up and down. You get vertigo bad, and then you just pull back on the stick and you auger in. So that has got a lot of people in the past, and I knew some of them. And the thing is, it's always a sobering act if you lose colleagues, friends, peers, fellow students, and doesn't happen that often in a civilian flight school that you have a accident, but I think the accident rate in the military is proportionally higher. Of course, you use different airspeeds and altitudes and all that stuff, G forces, but getting used to the G's and getting used to fly the airplane like in a dogfighting scenario, if you will, or like low-level flights, and to its capabilities. Yeah, because the airplane is much, much more capable than you as a human being, and finding your personal limits, like how many G's can I pull in a row, for example, or how long can I be in a high G environment before I pass out. So is very important. So it's very important, your own abilities and you understand the abilities of the airplane. Otherwise, you get in trouble really quick.
Okay. And so like when you were a fighter pilot, like how did you see fighter jet technology evolving? Like did you witness any specific advancements that impressed you, or or are there any advancements that you're excited about right now? Like right now we're I think fifth generation fighter jets are are already highly advanced, but sixth
Right.
generation fighter jets are going to come in soon as well. But like, what are you most excited about?
Well, I'm excited about seeing that there's a lot of technological improvement going on one hand. On the other hand, I'm also a little bit apprehended and scared because I've heard, several uh, comments or visions or opinions about the sixth generation fighter that'll be in production soon, or not in production, but it's in the planning process, basically. Um, so some experts say the last manned fighters are fifth generation aircraft, and everything from sixth generation onwards will be unmanned. I don't know. Um, I've seen new concepts which offer both ways. Let's say in the fighter squadron, you would have like mixed sixth generation aircraft, manned and unmanned ones. You can also see that nowadays in some militaries they use like the what is it called, the loyal wingman solution, where you have like a drone kind of, or looks like an aircraft, like a fighter jet but without a cockpit, and it flies next to you, and it's a loyal wingman, as the way says, name says, and it will provide you with fuel, for example, so you can buddy fuel from that loyal wingman, or you can also kind of control it, remote control it from your position and send it into a dangerous zone, basically send it ahead, do some reconnaissance or drop some ordnance or whatever. So there are multiple concepts, and there's a lot of visions and talking going on right now about the future of the combat aircraft. I would say sixth generation is still a bit ahead of us, but it's definitely worked on right now. My exposure to fifth generation was also limited. I know a couple of F-22 Raptor pilots and F-35 Fat Amy pilots. Recently been told by a F-35 pilot they don't actually appreciate the name Fat Amy. They refers to it as the Panther. But I think Joint Strike Fighter does not have an official designation yet. Well, yes, the JSF, the Joint Strike Fighter, but it's like the Fighting Falcon. Nobody calls the F-16 the Fighting Falcon. It's the Viper. And the FA-18, yeah, people call it the FA-18 because it's fighter attack, not just F-18. I guess if you're quick, you just drop the A, but it's, yeah, commonly known as the Hornet. So in my case, I flew the Legacy Hornet, the old one. I got to fly in a Super Hornet, got a backseat ride as well. Was also kind of eye-opening to me because it's the same concept basically, but it's a totally different airplane. It's about 20% bigger, it has more advanced avionics, flight controls. It looks similar from the outside, and to the untrained eye, I would say it's the same airplane, but it actually does look different. There's a couple of details. But it's a brand new airplane basically. So it's a generation step. And when you talk about the same airframe, I mean the F-16 has been around for what 50 years now, and
Yeah.
the current version, like Block 70 export Vipers, are completely from a different planet than your first well, first blocks, block 10, block 20, 30 block started beginning interesting. But I mean, software wise, avionics wise, the capability of the airplanes is completely different. It just looks the same on the outside, but on the inside, on the computer stuff, the magic side, basically, it's a completely different aircraft, and it gets complete. I mean, those things are being updated. Think of it as your smartphone, if you will, or your computer. You get software updates for your smartphone every now and then, and it basically works the same for every aircraft, especially in the military, but also commercial airliners get software upgrades, and some of them are good, some of them are not so good, and have bugs. When that happens, things go wrong, or you end up in the press usually with lives lost as well. That's the unfortunate side of it. But any new aircraft, basically, especially in the military, fighter jets and so on, have become so computer and software heavy that, for one, they would not be able to fly without it anymore, because you have a digital flight control system and everything is computer controlled. And on the other hand, the amount of information that you get from all your sensors is just so overwhelming, um, that as a pilot, you can sometimes be task saturated and get like too much information on one hand. On the other hand, uh, the manufacturers put a lot of effort into it, in making it intuitive, basically how to use the airplane, the avionics, and it's also supposed to support you. So some of the aircraft are voice controlled or voice activated. So you actually talk to the airplane. It's kind of like at home when you have Amazon, and you talk to, what's her name, Siri
Yeah.
or Alexa. No,
Yeah.
yeah, either one. One is Amazon, the other one is Apple. Don't, sorry, didn't want to make the advertising here, but that's just what popped into my head. Or a lot of cars also have voice activation, so you talk to your car and say, "Hey, car, set the nav for this and that address, or call X, Y, and Z from my phone book." Um, you have the same features in modern aircraft as well, so you can actually talk to the airplane and talks back to you. It The involvement of it goes into, or I've read about it. I don't know if it's true though, but it goes into the airplane trying to read your nerve cells, your brain cells, basically, and trying to understand what you're thinking about, so you can provide the information you need in the next few seconds or so. Uh, Pretty amazing, and I'm sure there's going to be much more of that in the future. Overwhelming technology, and we'll also see that happen in the commercial sector as well. So a lot of um, advancements, improvements, innovations that started out in the military have transferred over time in the civilian world, and now we're just using old top secret technology basically on in everyday's life.
Yeah. Um, so like through the course of, ground school, I mean, we have studied, the capabilities of the autopilot system a little bit. And one of my instructors just said, like, it's important for pilots to just keep their hand flying skills current, which is, I think, going to become a major problem in the years to come. Is that something which worries you as well?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good point. I mean, if you look at it, um, well, separate the military and commercial aviation. In the military, you've always been a stick and rudder guy, basically. So hand flying skills are very important. We use the autopilot very seldom. Some airplanes have really crappy ones. So the F-16 versions that I flew basically had just a three-axis autopilot. That's it. So nothing fancy like flight management system you find in modern airliners. Whereas in the airline industry, of course, you also have two different philosophies. You have the North American approach, and you have the European approach. And I don't want to say which one's better, or which one sucks or whatever. But the core differences are, like I said, didn't want to use names here, but let's say North America, Boeing, right? So Boeing uses the concept of using technology to support the aviators, but leave the pilots the capabilities of having the last call. So if the captain says, I want, I don't know, 60 degrees pitch up in a 30-degree bank, that's what you're going to get, right? Whereas Airbus, on the other hand, says, no, we use a different approach. We think our flight management computer or our aircraft is superior than the pilot, because pilots are people, and people make mistakes, and sometimes they make bad calls or have bad decisions. That's why we think it's a safer approach, that if you're like yanking on the sight stick, it only gives you a certain amount of pitch, raw, roll, whatever, parameter that you're requiring, and you can pull as hard as you want on the stick, and you're not going to get more. And that has led to difficult situations or dangerous situations in the past. And I think it's up to everybody to choose whichever concept he or she is more fond of. It's a classic conversation between Airbus and Boeing pilots. Well, which airplane is better? There's no such thing as which airplane is better in what context, right? Range, fuel economy, passenger comfort, maintenance friendliness, basically cost saving for the airlines. You're always looking or comparing these things with different parameters, basically. So you can't really say it's the best overall. The best what? The best, you know what I mean. So the difference in the concept, since I'm military trained, I prefer to have the overall authority, and to be the one who makes the last call, basically, in the sense of I make a lot of decisions while I fly, and hopefully all of those are the right decisions. And if I see a certain situation and I feel like it needs to be done this way, I don't want anybody, a computer or an autopilot or whatever system, telling me, no, you can't have that, even though I have the resource, because I think what you do is unsafe. I sometimes compare that as also to those systems to the new automobiles out there, new cars. I drive a very old car, which has barely any kind of a safety system. It has seat belts and I think an airbag as well, which might not work anymore after 30 years, but that's a different story. But if you have a new car, for example, you'll probably notice how many automated safety systems it has, right? It has a what is it called? Like a distance system, so you keep the same distance. It even uses a built-in radar, basically, to track the vehicle ahead of you. And if that vehicle is making a emergency stop, your car stops at the same speed, basically, so you don't hit. It has dead angle warnings. It has lane assist, you name it, you have it. You have a lot of assistance programs in new cars, and sometimes they don't work, they fail, and when they fail, you have accidents and you're in the news again. So it's also a question of philosophy. I mean, a lot of people say that, yes, but like with any new technology, in the beginning you have problems, and You sort them out over time. The question is always practicability and also liability, insurance wise. Who's going to pay for that if somebody actually gets hurt? Um, as a driver, for example, you also feel in some situations that, hey, it's my vehicle and I want it to go this direction, and I don't like anybody telling me I can't, right? So philosophy question, I would say, just like in the aircraft. So technology is there to support us, help us, make life easier. Like you have the autopilot, so you can, stretch out a little bit and ease your muscles and don't hold the stick and rudder the whole time. Um, but yeah, it should help us and support us, but not over control or take the control out of our hands, which would be dangerous, I would say.
Yeah. And so like going back just a little bit, so we just kind of spoke about how you were a forward air controller, and um, if you are just comfortable sharing with us, like could you maybe talk about a particularly demanding mission which you undertook with your unit, and just like kind of like what did you basically learn from that experience, and um like what did you take forward from it, like just based
Mm.
on the degree to which you can talk about. So
Well, I think I've benefited most from the early training missions. So in the military, you always train uh, to the extent that training actually is harder than the real missions. And um, there's a lot of truth to that. So if you sweat and blood during training, you're probably not gonna do the same in actual combat. But it depends on the situation. So training was tough, and I would say, learned a lot about team communication and team coordination because, like I mentioned earlier, we all speak the same language, English, but we use different terminology for everything. That's also like just true historically, basically. I mean, things in the Navy, even nowadays, in the maritime world, you use a different lingo than in land-based operations, basically. And it's you call it a different name, but it's still the same thing. So um, also traditionally, people come from different service branches. They have a different concept or approach how to do things. In the end, it works out. It doesn't matter if going from one side, going from the other side. Uh, the result needs to be there, basically. It needs to be done. It needs to get done, right? So um, I would say during those trainings, also with the different special forces from different branches, I've learned a lot about communication, and trying to understand the teams, the needs, and also find like a common denominator, like what's the same with every team, basically. Like in a critical situation, can you always go back to, basically, even if you have a communication breakdown. So yeah, communication. I've basically learned a lot about communication. It's important to communicate properly in the air. You know it from the flight training. Aviate, navigate, communicate. But when you
yeah.
communicate, you should also be brief and crisp and to the point, and communicate clearly. And in a conflict zone or in a war zone, in a military operation, a special operation, it's all about communication. You need to basically know what the other one will be doing without talking about it a lot. Yeah, and
Yeah.
that's why you have to standardize a lot of the communication process, and that's what you do in the training. Basically, you learn to communicate without talking a lot, and you pretty much know what the other guy's gonna do. He knows what you're gonna do. Everybody knows what he or she is supposed to do, and you work efficiently as a team, as a group. Yeah, and I think that was the biggest benefit I took out of that forward air control training.
And so I'm just kind of like interested. Like I just want to know. So um, can you just maybe talk about like the transition you made from being an F-16 pilot to a forward air controller? Like, why did you just kind of like what made you what motivated this shift in your career path um uh and then also what like additional training did you just have to undergo while making
Mm.
this transition?
Well, you could say I was at the right place at the right time, or if you look at it from the other angle, you could say you were at the wrong time at the wrong place, and and somebody thought it would be beneficial to train you as a forward air controller, because there's always a high demand for this job, and it's not always voluntarily done. Sometimes, especially around conflict when there's a need to have a forward air controller. It's not something people are like too fired up about, I would say. At least that's the feeling I got. I mean, it's would be more interested to become an air show pilot, for example, or do a tour as a test pilot. But when you get assigned as a forward air controller, a lot of colleagues saw it as an opportunity. Like been there, done that, seen actual combat on the ground. And I mean, I also took the same benefit out of it. I was like, okay, it takes me out of the cockpit for a while, but on the other side, I get to learn new skills and techniques that will make me even better once I return to the cockpit. And I think that's also true. And all the skills I've learned. Um, and to answer your question, I mean, I had to learn how to parachute, from static lines to free fall parachute jumps, hey ho, halo jumps.
Yeah.
Did scuba training, scuba diving training, um, close quarter combat. So anything basically from hand to hand combat to using any kind of weapons that you have with you, primary, secondary weapon, even anything. Use anything as a weapon to defend yourself, basically, and uh, a lot of marches, heavy marches through different terrain, various terrains. Anything from Arctic climate to the sea, deserts, how to survive in different, you know, climate zones, basically, and yeah, that kind of stuff. So basically, to make a pilot, yeah, a more advanced infantry trooper with a lot of secondary skills like skydiving and scuba diving and pathfinding and scouting and reconnaissance and all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Okay. And um so like based on everything you have seen, so the public has a certain perception of how special forces operate, and
Mhm.
mostly it's just through cinema, unfortunately. And I
Mhm.
have spoken with several special forces soldiers across the world, and almost all of them have said that what happens inside is vastly different from what is shown in the movies and what the public believe in. So based on what you have seen in your time, like how do you think how much of the public's perception is true and how much of it does it differ?
Yeah, I mean, I can just sign that. It's not as in the movies. It's not as romantic and you know, clean. Basically, I mean, there's some good movies out there. I haven't seen all of them, and but yeah, it's just like flying. Or being in the military per se. It doesn't matter what you do, when you serve. And I think that's the same in every country's military, every country's armed forces, no matter if it's Air Force, Army, or Navy. It's basically the same. You Uh, you have to fit into the system. In the beginning, you're kind of being made to fit into the system. Also, I mean, a lot of it depends on where you come from, right? So, um, in the sense of how did you grow up with authority? How was your family treating you? How was school treating you? How did you grow up? Are you like basically anti-authoritarian, or do you take advice or words or orders from your superiors, basically? So if you've always had a hard time listening to your parents or listening to your teachers in school, and maybe the military is not the right place for you, right? But if you've been, open to advice, basically, and you're like, okay, I think about it and then I do it, then you should, consider the military as well. Um, there's a lot of stereotypes in the sense of when you go join the military, you become a different person. Yes, you become a different person, but not in the sense of you become like brainwashed, and the military just kind of tears you down and rebuilds you in certain aspects. Yes, but what it has done for me and for a lot of my colleagues is it has transitioned us from being don't want to say like selfish, stubborn, teenager or knows-it-all, smart aleck, basically, into uh, supporting member of society, I would say, and uh, somebody who works well in teams, who fits in teams, fits into new situations, adapts to new situations quickly, uh, kind of gets a situational awareness of every situation, understands what needs to be done, basically, and those skills that you learn in the military, uh, I mean, you take them with you and you keep them all your life. So it's not just yes, you know how to polish your shoes, you know how to, wash your uniforms, how to be like self-sufficient. No, mom doesn't have to do that for you anymore. You you learn how to basically keep a household, yeah. Which is also beneficial, for later life, for marriage, family. I think wives appreciate a military husband who knows how to iron and help in the household. I mean, it's in the military, everybody, no matter what gender, race, social background, we're all the same. So you start as the same at the same basis, basically, and then you're being, uh, learned new stuff every day, and it just builds up, it adds up, and once you leave the military, you take those things with you. I mean, if you don't think about it actively, but you do it, unconsciously. You always put your clothes in a in a neat way. You just don't throw your jacket or pants when you come home, after work into the corner, and that's it. No, it's just uh, somebody told you many years ago to hang your coat and put it in the closet or something like that. It's just a stupid example, but that's what I can think of it at the moment. Yeah. So um, yeah, I think maybe it's not for everyone, but those who have been in the military and served will uh, probably acknowledge what I've just said. Yes.
Yeah. And so I have two final questions for you.
Mhm.
So right now you're working as a consultant, but
Exactly.
so how has like the career you had before kind of how have you been able to like apply whatever you learned from your time in the military, to your current job?
Hmm. Well, uh, a lot of people talk about transitioning from the military to the civilian world, and it's I would say it's challenging. It's not easy because you don't have a handbook that teaches you how to, you know, change again, like you have changed before you came into the military, before you entered, you were, teenager, whatever, and had your own mind, your own ideas, and then you transition into a military member, and then after an amount of time, amount of years, you're supposed to leave all that behind you, and all those things like I've just mentioned with hanging your clothes properly, all those little ticks or trainings or manners that you have picked up over the years. And some of them are positive, and some of them are maybe not so positive, or not viewed positive by the larger audience or by those who have not served it as civilian world, right? So it always depends on the workplace, of course, and the company you work for, and the team you work for. If there's anybody uh, there who has served, formally, like a veteran, he or she can kind of grab you by the hand and guide you along and say, okay, this is appreciated in our community, and this maybe not. And that's always a trial and error period. So if you try new jobs, new companies after leaving the military, you can sometimes burn yourself, but you have to do a lot of research and just use that situational awareness to understand, evaluate, how far can you go in bringing those skills with you, the negative skills, in the sense of you don't want to let your previous military experience be offensive to anybody, right? But you want to use those skills that you have learned, and adapt them on the actual job ahead. So things like punctuality, yeah, I mean, we don't need to talk about that, but punctuality is one of the most important things in the military, or especially in aviation. You do things, you time turns, for example, right? So you use the seconds counter on your stopwatch, and it has to be on the second, right, when you do uh, navigation. So yeah, punctuality, unfortunately, is still in some areas of the world and some countries not a big thing. Just basically come whenever you have time. No, when it says it's a meeting at this and that time, you have to be there at the time, and not 5 minutes later or something like that, and then use whatever apology to apologize for why you're late. So that's one of the things, again, from the military. But one of the other things I've discovered is, over the years you become more relaxed. So in the beginning, it would tick me off if somebody would come late to a meeting, because I was like, okay, we all go through traffic and can get stuck, but you have to plan accordingly. That's what pilots use, contingency planning, for example, what ifs. um, and yeah, I mean, something can always happen, but if it happens like regularly on every meeting, and the same person is late, yeah. Now it's over the years, I would say I became a little more relaxed, and see it with uh, a different set of eyes, basically, because it's a lot of things can happen. Every situation is different, and you don't know what that person is going through, or whatever day he or she had that led to the coming late to an appointment. So yeah.
Mhm. Um, and just like my last question just for you is like, what sort of advice would you want to give to aspiring aviators like me and other people who also want to become fighter pilots or become pilots in general?
Yeah. Well, go for it. Go for it. If it's something that has been bothering you in a positive sense since you can remember, or for a long time, if it's something you dearly want to do, go for it. I mean, set high goals. It's never wrong to set high goals. Uh, don't disbelieve in yourself if you don't reach the goals 100%. Um, you can always say, I have tried to get there. I mean, becoming a fighter pilot it has to do with luck as well. I mean, you have to be under the right stars, kind of like to work hard on one hand and be at the right place at the right time, and then do some more. But I think the factor luck is also playing in there because I know a lot of people who would have been excellent fighter pilots or military pilots, but for whatever reason, they didn't get that far, and it's a pity, right? So, saying that, it was just all my right doing and my talent or whatever. No, I think there is more than that to it. So, of course, the hard work, the learning, the studying, the performing under pressure, that is there. Yes. If you go to a commercial flight school and you actually pay for your training, I mean, you see it on yourself. It's if you have to work to support yourself and then pay for flight training, you're going to figure out pretty soon. Well, either I am serious about this and expedite my training and give the best I can, or or I find something else because it's just so expensive. So you don't have the privilege of taking too much time on one hand and not being devoted on the other hand. So I think that most people that I spoke to so far who are interested in aviation always have that certain drive and motivator. They're like, what does it take? How can I be more efficient? How can I reach my goals um, quicker? Is there like any shortcuts? And then I always say, no, there's no shortcuts, and there's no straight line either. You will find a lot of hurdles and ups and downs, and you have to divert many times. But if your mind is really set for that goal, you'll achieve it eventually. It's just not going to be a direct line, and it's going to take a lot of time and effort and just nerve and energy. But in the end, you will succeed. You just have to believe in yourself, and that's important. Have the right mindset of saying that yes, I can do that. I'm not like, oh my gosh, this is so hard, I'll never make it. No, it's flying includes a lot of things, and one of them is to believe in yourself. If you don't believe in yourself that you can actually do it, you will never succeed and be a good pilot. And it doesn't really matter what you fly. If you just fly, ultralights, sailplanes, if you fly heavy commercial airliners or fighter jet, it's all the same, right? It it's physics. It flies the same way. The controls are similar. Um, you probably could fly anything. So, of course, one always wants to fly the brightest and fastest, and but in the end, if you get paid to do what you love most, and that is just be above the clouds and fly, hey,
Yeah.
what better way, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Think of it that way, and don't put too much pressure on yourself and say, hey, because I don't know, for whatever reason I need to fly 747s for this and that airline. No, it doesn't matter. And if you're just a agricultural pilot, I mean, what's the name? Just being an ag pilot is great. It's like there's some similarities to flying a fighter because you fly low to the ground. It's dangerous. It's a thrill. So, uh, don't talk badly about pilots flying different aircraft or from different branches.
Yeah.
As long as it flies, as long as you enjoy what you do, go for it.
Yeah, thank you so much, Nick, for coming on the podcast. I've been chasing you for a very, very long time, and we were finally able to get it done today. And yeah, I had a huge pleasure talking to you and learning about your time in the military. And um, yeah, we'll be editing this podcast, this episode soon, and then yeah, we will upload it onto the channel. But yeah, thank you so much for coming on the podcast today.
My pleasure. Thank you for the invitation.
Sure.